expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Well, speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
By the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday evening, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that as a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I merely desire information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I've often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate draught.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I myself have very little experience in the matter. I have only been married once, and that was due to a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I'm not sure that I'm all that interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir. It's not a very interesting subject, and I never think of it myself.
Quite natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders can't set a good example, then what's the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibilities.
Mr. Ernest Worthy.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else would bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society. We should take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses others. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people that you amuse?
Oh, neighbors, neighbors.
Got nice neighbors in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. You never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. But by the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire, yes. Hello. What are these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, but I don't think Aunt Augusta will much approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way that Gwendolen flirts with you.
I'm in love with Gwendolen. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you would come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic about proposing. Why? It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. One may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. But then the excitement is all over. Uncertainty is the very essence of romance. If I ever become married, I shall certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algy. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there's no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made, please, don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
But you have been eating them all the time.
That is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is, too.
Well, you need not eat it as if you're going to eat it all, my dear boy. You behave as if you're married to already. You are not married to already, and I don't think you ever will be.
May I ask why?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't. It counts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you must answer the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algy, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me the cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you have had my cigarette case the entire time? I wish to goodness you had let me know. I have been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I seem to be more than usually hard up.
But there is no use offering a reward now that the thing is found.
I must say, I think that is very mean of you, Ernest. However, it makes no difference, for now that I see the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours at all.
Of course it's mine. You have seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends upon what one shouldn't read.
I am perfectly well aware of the fact, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. Just give me my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you don't know anyone by that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes. Charming old lady she is, too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is a matter surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
But why does your small aunt, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. Now, there is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but I can't see why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle. I can't quite make it out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You have always told me your name was Earnest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You are the most earnest person I ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany W. I'll keep this as proof your name is Ernest, in case you ever attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come on, boy, you'd much rather have the whole thing out at once.
My dear fellow, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that's exactly what dentists always do. Now, tell me the whole thing. I will admit that I have always suspected you of being a secret and confirmed bunderist, but I am quite sure of it now.
A bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a bunburyist?
I will reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation. And pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable at all about my explanation. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle from motives of respect you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly, the place is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, I am not sure you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or to one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Earnest who lives in the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. If it were either, modern life would be very tedious and modern literature a complete impossibility. No,
that wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Ah, well, literary criticism is not your forte, my dear boy. Don't try it. You'd much better leave that to people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. No, what you are is a bunburyist. I was quite right in saying that you are a bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest, in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you should like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go into the country as often as I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. For instance, if it weren't for Bunbury's failing health, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know you haven't, dear boy. It is absurdly careless of you. Nothing annoys anyone so much as not receiving an invitation.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. I know perfectly well who she will place me next to. She's going to set me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. It is so bad, it is simply washing one's clean linen in public. No, and now that I know that you're a bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you all about bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. If Cecily is a little too much interested in him, it is rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of my brother, and I strongly advise you to do the same with your with your invalid friend, who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever become married, which seems to be extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury as well. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she is the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize, dear Jack, that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear fellow, is the theory the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
Oh, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
It's not perfectly easy being anything these days. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ever bring that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I can get her out of the way for 10 minutes in order that you might be able to propose to Gwendolen, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It's so shallow with them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving well.
I am feeling quite well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart, aren't I, Miss Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions. I'm sorry for a little bit late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She
cucumber sandwiches. I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed colour, from what caught I, of course, cannot say. Oh, I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice person and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight.
I certainly hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and needless to say, terribly disappointing to me. But the fact is, I have just received a telegram saying that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange that Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
I think it is high time that this Mr. Bunbury make up his mind on whether he were going to live or die. This shilly-shally with the question is absurd. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury for me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one requires something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season, when everyone has said whatever they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he's still conscious. And I think I can guarantee that it'll be quite all right by Saturday. But the music, of course, is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, well, people don't listen. And if one plays bad music, well, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program that I've drawn up for the evening if you will come into the next room.
Thank you, Algernon. That was very thoughtful of you. I'm sure that the program will be delightful after a few explanations. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me. Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
But I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be able to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would highly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I ever met since I met you.
Yes, I am quite aware of the fact, and I have often wished that, in public at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals, and my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn.
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest.
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know it is. But supposing it was something else, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care about the name of Ernest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly.
I think Jack, for instance, a fine name.
Jack? No. There is very little music in the name of Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they have all, without exception, been more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely, you know that I love you, and you led me to believe that you are not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you have not proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn,
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
you know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it. I am afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one. I have never loved anyone but you.
Yes, but men often propose from practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing rises from the simmer recumbent posture and is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, but you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, should compliment him, will inform you of the facts. An engagement should come upon a young woman as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have some questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. As I make these inquiries, Gwendolyn, you will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage!
Yes, Mamma!
You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down in my list of eligible young men, though I have the same list that the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. I am, however, ready to enter your name should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm very pleased to hear it. I am not in favor of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investment?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. Between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land ceases to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position, but it prevents one
country home with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres, I believe, but I don't depend on it for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only ones who make anything of it.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Ah, well, that can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a house in Belgrave Square. It is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get it back whenever I like, at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham. I do not know her.
She is a lady considerably advanced in years. She goes about very little.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
I'm afraid I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. And now on to minor matters. Are your... Now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Oh. To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, might be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some power. He comes from what the radical papers call purple palmers, or did he rise to the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I don't really know who I am by birth. I was, well, the truth is, Lady Bracknell, I said I was found. I'm sorry, I said that... I don't recall what I said.
You just said
But
that
the
you
truth is... I'm sorry?
You just said that you were found?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was found. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he had a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Where did this charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a rather large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
What locality did this Mr. Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
Cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I confess that I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred in a handbag, with or it has handles or not, seems to me to display contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Welling, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
But I don't see how I can possibly do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that Lord Bracknell and myself would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and to enter an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For heaven's sake, don't play that ghastly tune, Algy. How idiotic you are.
She's always refusing people. It's his way she has. I think it is most ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is utterly unbearable. I never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I am quite sure that Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she is a monster, without being a myth, which is rather unfair. Pardon me, Algy. I beg your pardon. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge about how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
That is nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue about the matter. You always want to argue about things.
That is exactly what things were originally made for.
For heaven's sake, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't suppose there is any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It was perfectly phrased, and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I am sick to death of cleverness. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
Oh, we have.
Well, I would surely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
Oh, fools? Why, about clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, the truth is not the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to court her if she is pretty, and someone else if she is plain.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't. What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, by the end of the week I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died suddenly in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die quite suddenly of apoplexy, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You had much better say a severe chill.
You're sure that a severe chill is not hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest is carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your brother Ernest. Wouldn't she feel his loss a great deal?
Oh, that is no matter. Cecily is not a silly romantic girl, I am glad to say. She's got a capital appetite, goes long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I should rather like to see you, Cecily.
I will take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty and only just 18.
Oh, really? Have you told Gwendolyn you have an excessively pretty young ward who's only just 18?
One doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that after they have called each other a lot of other things first. Now, if we want to get at the table of Willis's, we really must go up and change. Do you know that it is nearly 7?
Oh, it is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never known you when you weren't.
Well, what shall we do after dinner? Shall we go to the theater?
Oh, no. I loathe listening.
Well, let us go to the club.
No. I hate talking.
Well, we might trot round to the Empire at 10.
Oh, no. I can't stand to look at things. It is so silly.
Well, then, what shall we do?
Nothing.
doing nothing. However, I don't mind work so long as there is no definite object in mind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word!
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude toward life. You are not quite old enough to do that.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But, although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address is the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own darling.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I've turned round already.
You may also ring the bell.
May I see you to a carriage, Miss Fairfax?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Lane, I'm going Bunburying on Monday. Well, I'm probably will not be back till Monday. You can lay out all the Bunbury suits, the dress clothes, the smoking.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
Thank you, sir. I do my best to give satisfaction.
That'll do, Lane. Thank you.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl. The only girl I ever cared for in all my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, nothing. I'm just worried about my poor friend Bunbury is all.
If you do not take care, your poor friend Bunbury will get you into a very serious scrape someday.
My dear boy, I love scrapes. They are the only things that are never serious.
Oh, that is nonsense. You are never talking anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.